Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome to Gloria Victis. So, I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of you have probably heard of this game, or even played it. But it's something, while I've known about it for quite a while, I've never really set the time aside to actually give it a play. Because it's been in early access for quite a while now, and I keep seeing sort of updates going on, and I keep hearing things about it, but I've just never actually played it. So I set the time aside and kind of got stuck in to kind of see what its position is, now in 2020. And generally speaking, I really enjoyed it. I think always a good measure is, do I continue to play the game after I've captured my footage? And yes, I actually have. So it's always a good sign that I've been enjoying it. The game itself actually released into early access way back in 2016, so you'd kind of expected the game to sort of fallen behind and got forgotten. But from what I've seen, from the conversations I've had with the developers, they've really been working hard to keep updates going. We've recently had the mounts update, which is kind of cool to see that they've had horses into the game, and I think given the sort of size of the map, it's certainly something that definitely needed to be added and was a worthwhile addition. So obviously, most of you who know me will know I come from sort of a Conqueror's Blade background, which I was actually expecting to be more similar to this game than it actually is. But I think that's kind of meant that one of the areas that I've really enjoyed about this game the most is the crafting system, because it feels very intuitive, it's quite large. I enjoy the fact there's just a ton of different recipes to learn. There's different skill grades, different tier grades. It's pretty intuitive. I like the fact it points to the recipes you need, the materials you need. And I think when you compare that to Conqueror's Blade, it feels a lot better and a lot more developed. And I think that's what makes it feel a lot more like an MMORPG than just sort of an instanced fighting game. And I guess that naturally leads us on to the combat in the game. I generally have sort of mixed feelings with the combat. Firstly, I think it's a good base point. I like the fact it has directional attacks and directional blocks, although I must admit, because from my Mount and Blade experience, I know how much I suck with directional blocking. I went with a shield because I'm a coward. And I also like the fact that it builds on the power of your strike. So it means you can sort of do a very fast but light strike, or you can take longer and do a harder strike. And you can sort of, I think when you get this timing right and get to sync it in combination with your shield bash, etc., I think it can actually feel like a fairly good system. However, it just has that slightly clunky feel to it that just kind of slightly ruins it for me. I think perhaps you'll see it in some of the footage where sometimes you glitch into enemies slightly. It doesn't feel very fast-paced in the way that, say, if we compare it to Conqueror's Blade, it feels a much more sort of fluid and dynamic combat system. So I think that's one area I'd really like to see improved to bring it up to sort of modern times, because I think it's an area that's got a really good base, and I really like the sort of core mechanics around the combat, but I think it's just one of those areas that just feels a little bit clunky. I think we also see this kind of slight lack of refinement in some of the siege equipment. For example, the ballista, it just feels like a little bit out of date for a modern game in 2020. I think it's something that kind of needs to be updated with animations, make it sort of run a little bit smoother, and I think it would give a much more immersive experience. But once you start to get running with friends, once you start to get stuck into some of the quests, start to get stuck into some of the larger fights, plus get into some of the PvP stuff, some of the castle sieges, this game really does start to come into its own, and it starts to feel like a real medieval World of Warcraft. It feels like a true MMORPG, and it's such a rare thing, I think, in the medieval genre to have this, and it really is actually very much good fun. I think you really get stuck into the crafting system, the collection of resources, the completion of quests, the gathering of glory, and actually trying to build not only a house, but trying to establish and push your race, I'm currently the Midlanders, to try and establish their dominance over the continent. We do have some siege-based stuff, some instance battles that can be sort of accepted and started, but they are kind of fairly rare in the game. They only seem to occur sort of every couple of hours, and you sort of basically sign up for them, and that puts you into like an auto-created matchmaking-based PvP fight. And they're kind of cool. I've been actually really enjoying them. I think the combat actually kind of works almost better in that sort of situation, although I did get pretty much absolutely slaughtered every time and felt really rather outclassed by some of the players who obviously have been playing this game a lot longer, and I have a lot better at it. But I still think it's kind of an enjoyable aspect. I wish it had a much more matchmaking based queue though, and wasn't just these occasional events that happen every couple of hours. If you log on at the wrong time, or you just miss the start of it, then that's like another 2 hours you've got to wait before you can actually just get stuck into some PvP action. Of course, we still have like the full open world PvP system where you can go into sort of other factions' territory, hunt down enemy players, particularly if you know sort of sites they're likely to be at. Where you might get attacked by some of the AI guards, you can still go and kind of hunt some of these people down, find them, kill them, etc, etc. And that makes for some pretty fun fights. And of course, you know, there's the whole sort of territory conquest aspect of it, where fights are going to be occurring around different castles, but that makes the fights very sort of open world is the only way to really describe it, where there's quite a large amount of distance between where you are and where the enemy is to go and kill, and it can often involve quite a lot of walking and travelling to get from sort of your location to over to this fight. That's why I think those sort of instanced event type battles are actually kind of quite a bit more fun for me. I think I made a bit of a mistake of not joining a house early on. I think that adds quite a lot more to the game. It's going to help, you know, teach you a lot about how the game works, and I think it opens up quite a bit more content in terms of sort of organised group activities. Because I kind of felt that once I'd sort of completed the initial quests, the sort of guidance in terms of where to go or what to do kind of started to sort of drift away to not a lot, and I kind of felt like I didn't really have all that much to do other than grind sort of specific crafting aspects that I wanted to achieve. But they were kind of my own set goals rather than having goals set for the game for me to try and achieve and continue to work my way up. So there were certainly points when I started to feel like I was a bit lost, or at least I didn't really have an aim of anything I was specifically trying to achieve. And I think that's kind of a shame, because I think that's something you want to have in a game like this. Having goals and sort of things to try and achieve really does help drive you on. I think combine that with complete real lack of any voice acting going on for any of the NPC quests kind of just makes the whole overall PvE experience a little bit too grindy in my opinion, and not really very immersive because there's no real detailed story, as I just said. So yeah, all in all, I felt the PvE aspect is something that could certainly be worked and improved upon. And that really about sums up my experiences with the game so far. On the whole, I have really enjoyed myself. I think the game has an awful lot of potential and has some really nice concepts to it. I think it really builds on the MMO aspect of sort of the medieval genre much more than just the fighting, because I think the fighting is one of those areas that really would benefit from some extra work to try and make it just feel a little bit smoother, because it does feel a little bit clunky and clunky even. The crafting system is one of the areas I do like. I think it's pretty well developed. There's a large amount of recipes. I like how you can craft things in most places, but crafting tables give specific bonuses. You can get different levels of crafting tables, kind of introduces and gives benefit to using guilds and houses and owning land to make sure you be able to make use of higher tier crafting tables. I think all that sort of works well and is a nice system. But I feel the PvE is somewhere that kind of lets it down. There's not really much in the way of story, and unless you're going to get heavily involved with a guild, then I think you're missing out on a huge part of the game. I did really enjoy doing some of the PvP stuff. Those instant sieges were kind of quite good fun, even if I did just get slaughtered in pretty much every single one. It didn't exactly pan out amazingly for me, but I did actually enjoy myself. And I guess I think the final thing to add is that I've been really impressed by the devs of this game. They post really regularly weekly news updates. They seem to interact really well with the community, give a lot of feedback, and work really hard for the game. I certainly think it's one of those games, if you're sort of a bit sitting on the fence, this is one that's well worth supporting, if nothing else, because it's a worthy cause to try and help these devs make this game better and better. And that is really about all I've got for you. Hopefully you've kind of enjoyed this video. If you have, do let me know what you think about this video, and of course the game down in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for lots more sort of medieval strategy MMO type content. And thanks for watching, guys. I shall see you all on the next video.